My name is Simone Kirby and I'm playing Molly Sweeney.
So Simone, could you tell me a little bit about the character you're playing and describe her to us?
Molly is 41 and she's been blind since she was 10 months old. And her father was a judge, and her mother was in and out of hospital with nervous trouble over the years. So she grew up in this big old house, probably with housekeepers for the most part taking care of her, and then in her late 30s she meets Frank. She's a masseuse in a health club, and she's very independent, and she lives she lives in sort of a small bubble of a small group of friends and work, and then Frank enters that world and sort of blows it all up because he becomes obsessed with her regaining her sight, and brings this Dr. Rice into it, and then they set about operating on her eyes to give her sight back, and then she slowly sort of begins to disintegrate.
What's interesting about her as a person to you as an actress?
One of the things that I like playing is she doesn't say no when all this is going on. She gets to talk to the audience about how this is not what she wants, but she doesn't say no to them. And then once she does get her eyesight back and things begin to sort of scare her, and the men don't really understand what's going on psychologically with her, because they're seeing her from a scientific point of view. They're seeing what's going on with her eyes and how her eyes aren't beginning to work anymore, but they're not really seeing the whole picture, which is that she's actually quite like her mother in a lot of ways, and she's not quite stable enough to deal with all of this, and that from the beginning of the second act onwards, it's interesting to play that decline, and she becomes quite bitter about everything, but then, you know, she never said no either, so even though you can blame the men for it, she did sort of allow this to happen to her as well, which is interesting.
Could you tell me where you're from?
I'm from a town called Ennis in County Clare in the west of Ireland.
And what is it? What's the place like?
The town is quite a big town, really, and I grew up in an estate, sort of about a 20-minute walk from my school, from the town, and there was no arts centre there when I was growing up. There was only sort of amateur theatre, but I remember a group called Machnus coming to town with shows, and they were really physical, beautiful shows, and sort of blowing my mind because I hadn't seen anything like that in the town. And they were from a town called Galway, which is about an hour north, so as soon as I left school I moved straight to Galway.
Is that when you knew you wanted to be an actress?
Yeah. Well, I think I always knew, actually. I think I always knew I wanted to be an actress, but I didn't really know that I could be one, I suppose.
How old were you when you figured it out?
I mean, quite young when I knew I wanted to do it, but I think I went to college to train to be an artist, actually. I went to art college in Galway. And the first thing that I did as soon as I got there was I joined a drama society in the college, and then we did a play, and that was when I went, forget it, and I stopped going to class and just started hanging around the theatre all day long.
Could you tell me a little bit, does Friel's world, the world he creates in this play, ring true to your experience of Irish life?
Yeah, small town Ireland, not really, well, I guess in some ways Ennis, but Ennis is a much bigger town, but definitely everybody knows everybody's business, I guess, that sort of small town thing, and yeah, I do recognise that world. And it's not, I mean, it's like Dancing at Luna say is 1930s, this is a lot later, so it's, I guess, 70s, 80s, you know, which, so yeah.
What's it like as an actress to tackle Brian Friel? It seems like a challenge to me, the language being so poetic and so dense in a lot of ways. Could you talk a little bit about that?
I mean, I would say it's less of a challenge because of those things.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I love playing Friel because he makes it so easy to feel emotional when you need to feel, because he builds it up so beautifully, you know, that it's not a struggle to try and get somewhere. Like, he absolutely takes you there and back, you know, and so I find it, I can do a long run. I did a long run of Dancing with Lunacy before, and I've been playing Molly for a long time now as well, and I don't get tired of it, because every day you find something new, and because the language is so beautiful, that I find it easier to do something like this than I would with another writer, I think.
How has it been working with this cast and this director in this particular production?
Well, great. I mean, I started off doing this show in Leicester in England, and then they pulled me from there, and with a couple of days rehearsal they plopped me into a whole different production, and it's a very different production, much simpler in a lot of ways, you know, 3 chairs, which is how Friel describes it, and they were just really generous. They didn't try to fit me in too much into what they were doing. They just allowed me to play my Molly in their production, which was fantastic. They were really generous, and it's all been quite easy and lovely.
Could you talk about your relationship with the other actors in the play? Has it been? You've mentioned a supportive environment.
Yeah.
How's it been? It seems interesting to me that there's a lot of interplay between the stories, but there's no interaction between the actors. How is that? What's that like, being on stage in that circumstance?
I think it's difficult if you're tired at all, because you don't get to play the scene with anyone, because you have to play it by yourself, and you do need a lot of energy, a lot of stamina, I think, to do the show. But the 2 guys, I think if it was with 2 people who weren't so much fun to be around, you know, I wouldn't enjoy. But like backstage, we have a lot of fun, and even if we're not interacting on stage, because the 3 of us are on stage all the time, and it's quite a tight little set too, you know, we're sort of in it together still, really, and the energy, we all have to keep the energy up, pass the ball to each other, you know, and keep the energy up. So it does, and if you can hear somebody when you're sitting there stumbling over a line, I think everyone goes until that person gets it back again, and so we are kind of all in it together still anyway.
Have you tried New Haven pizza yet?
No.
Oh,
no, I haven't.
We're gonna fix that.
Yeah,
okay.
Fix that.
Totally have to.
Okay.
Excellent. No, that was beautiful.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
It was so fun.
Great.